human resources. They're supposed to be the impartial guardians of the workplace, right? The people you go to for help. But what happens when the very person meant to protect you becomes the problem? Well, we're about to dive into two absolutely wild, true stories where HR managers went rogue with some pretty shocking consequences. Now, take a look at these words on your screen. Cold-hearted, retaliatory, predatory. This isn't dialogue from some corporate thriller movie. Nope, these are the official adjectives used by Australia's Workplace Tribunal, the Fair Work Commission, to describe the actions of HR managers in two separate, stunning cases. And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? So we're going to unpack this exact question by looking at two dramatic true stories that actually ended up in court. And believe me, they reveal just how far things can go, and more importantly, what your rights are when they do. Okay, our first story. This is a case of underpayment retaliation. It all kicks off with probably the most reasonable question an employee can ask, but it spirals into this years-long battle that involves threats, stonewalling, and ultimately a huge fight for justice. Meet Philip Naskovsky. Back in January 2019, while he was working at the electronics company Hisense, he made a pretty simple verbal inquiry about his pay. He was just asking about his casual loading and shift allowance. Just wanted to make sure he was being paid correctly. Seems simple enough. But this wasn't just a one-and-done conversation. Oh no. After that first question in 2019, things escalated dramatically. At one point, he was offered a promotion, only to have it yanked away. When he kept asking for his pay records in mid-2021, the new HR manager didn't just ignore him. She actually threatened his job and demanded he reprove his legal right to work in Australia. I mean, the stress got so bad he had to go on sick leave. And then, just a few months after that, he was fired. So when this whole mess landed in court, you had two very different stories. Hisense claimed Mr. Naskovsky was let go for valid reasons, said he was refusing to go to meetings and a medical assessment. But Naskovsky argued the real reason was just pure retaliation, that he was being punished for exercising his fundamental right to ask about his pay. So that's a case of an HR manager targeting an employee. But what happens when the HR manager is the one facing the serious allegations? If you thought that first story was a wild ride, well, buckle up, because our second case takes an even stranger, more unbelievable turn. The HR manager in this story, a man named Firaz Raghib, was accused of some incredibly serious misconduct. One of his direct reports alleged he exercised coercive control over her and was obsessively questioning her about her relationships with male colleagues. Then another complainant alleged he had inappropriately touched her at a company Christmas party. And on top of all that, there were claims he made misogynistic comments about other female colleagues. So, facing an internal investigation and, the potential end of his career, Mr. Raghib didn't just deny everything. He came forward and said he had definitive, undeniable proof that the claims against him were completely bogus. He presented a single piece of evidence that he was sure would clear his name. And what was his smoking gun? A screenshot of a text message. It was supposedly from his main accuser, a woman named Erin Winsberry. In the message, she appeared to apologize for making the complaint, saying she was talked into it. Now, for any investigation, evidence like that would be an absolute bombshell. It could derail the entire case. But there was a huge problem. Miss Winsberry was adamant she had never, ever sent that message. She swore it wasn't from her, which, of course, raises the one critical question that would unravel the entire defense. Who actually sent the text? The answer is just jaw-dropping. A digital forensic investigation revealed that Mr. Raghib had sent the apologetic text message to himself. He sent it from his own company-issued work phone to his personal phone. The whole thing was a desperate, fabricated attempt to frame his accuser and discredit her complaint. The deception was so elaborate, so audacious, that the Fair Work Commission had this truly memorable take on it. They said his fabricated story was something that even the famous spy novelist John le Carre, a master of these complex espionage plots, would have been impressed by. It is one of the most incredible literary takedowns you will ever see in a workplace ruling. So we have these two unbelievable stories, one of retaliation, the other of just outright fabrication. So how did the formal system of workplace justice handle them? Let's get to the official rulings. Well, the outcomes were pretty clear-cut. In that first case, Philip Naskovsky's claim was upheld. The court found he was, in fact, unlawfully dismissed for exercising a workplace right. But in the second case, The HR manager, Firas Raghib's claim of unfair dismissal was completely rejected. The commission said his dismissal was totally valid because of his serious misconduct. I mean, the dishonesty was just undeniable. And digging into that first ruling, the court really did not mince words about the HR manager who targeted Mr. Noskovsky. It called her evidence unreliable and her actions a high-handed, dismissive, and at times retaliatory approach. The message here was crystal clear. Punishing an employee for just asking about their pay isn't just wrong, it is explicitly unlawful. And in the second case, the commission was just as blunt. They called Mr. Raghib's fake text message a cynical fabrication that was designed to mislead the entire investigation. They ruled that this profound act of dishonesty was an entirely valid reason to fire him.
Okay, these stories are more than just shocking workplace drama. They actually have some crucial lessons for every single one of us as employees. So let's pivot from the specific cases to the big takeaway here: understanding your fundamental rights at work.
So, let's break this down. What exactly is a workplace right? Well, to put it simply, it's a legal entitlement you have as an employee. And the one at the heart of that first case is a perfect example. You have the right to make a complaint or an inquiry about your job, whether it's about your pay, your safety, or your leave. And here's the crucial part. If you exercise a right like that, you are legally protected from something called adverse action. That's the illegal flip side. It's when your employer punishes you for speaking up. And it isn't just about being fired. Think back to Mr. Noskovsky's case, having a promotion withdrawn or being threatened. That can also count as unlawful adverse action. To put it as simply as possible, you saying, "Hey, I think I've been underpaid, can I please see my records?" That is you lawfully exercising a workplace right. Your employer responding with, "You keep asking about your pay, so you're fired," that is them unlawfully taking adverse action against you. It's a direct cause and effect that the law is specifically designed to prevent. So here is the most important thing to take away from all of this. The law is on your side in these situations. You cannot be punished. You can't be demoted. You can't be dismissed simply for asking legitimate questions or raising valid concerns about your own employment. That is your right, and these cases prove it is absolutely protected. And that leaves us with one final, crucial question for you to think about. After hearing these stories and seeing how the system can work, take a second to consider your own situation. If you were ever faced with something like this, would you know your rights? Because as these cases show, knowing your rights isn't just good information. It's your first and most powerful line of defense.